If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? All right, welcome back to the conversation. CEO Mischief Makers, MKJ here, and my guest, Mike Grinberg. If you have not listened to our conversation on Monday about mindset, I highly encourage, just like I do every time, for you to follow the story as it unfolds and go back and listen to that conversation. So now, welcome back, Mike. Be ready for this innovation piece?
Let's do it.
Yes. All right. So if you heard us on the last episode, Mike gave a perfect analogy of how he came to the mindset of different rather than better. And so now if we can take that, and you had to go deep in that, Mike. So I'm really glad that you showed us how you have to do that. We have to go deep into why and how we are different, and why and how we are the best, not just better, but we are perfectly aligned to serve these particular people. And we're going to go into how you did that with the innovation. Now, just to set the stage for people who are new to the show, and make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about innovation here, we don't think of innovation as the Elon Musks and Steve Jobs of the world. I don't know how those guys' brains work, but mine doesn't work that way. So we talk about innovation by taking a standard framework that we all know exists, that we all know works, and bringing our uniqueness, our unique business model, way we communicate, previous experience, all kinds of things into a standard practice, and we innovate it to allow ourselves to be perfectly aligned with the customer we serve. So I just kind of gave away what we're going to talk about today, but we're going to dive into specifically how, Mike, you did that. So take us from last conversation and dive into your service business. You're not going to be better. You don't want to be cheaper. You don't want to be faster. You want to be different. How did you take up standard service? First off, tell us a little bit more about what your service is, what you do. And then how did you take that standard service and innovate it to serve your particular audience?
Yes. I mean, the service, if we really talk about the tactical things of what we do, is going to sound very similar to a lot of marketing agencies and sales coaches and go-to-market consultants and whatever, right? Like, we help people create podcasts, we help them do live events, we help them get active on social, we do paid media, we do some SEO, we do, marketing ops and analytics, whatever. Cool, whatever, right? That gets into, well, how do you do those things better? Now, we talked about all those challenges. So if you haven't, as you said, if you haven't listened to that, listen to that first, the first episode, the mindset episode. But when it comes to the innovation piece, I mean, you described it, I think, really beautifully. What's the framework that exists? Well, a lot of people are out there already talking about, that marketing should be more about demand gen versus lead gen. All these kind of thoughts are out there. Forget the fact that a lot of the tactical stuff is built for tech companies and SaaS companies. Doesn't necessarily apply to service businesses. That's a very different business model for a variety of reasons. So that was kind of the first aha moment, if you will, of, well, yeah, there are a lot of these people that are listening to and reading and whatever, all these things that not all of it applies to them. For that matter, a lot of this can be actually dangerous for them because you're not dealing with a business that's got high volume, with a high profit margin. You got much lower profit margin, much lower volumes, very people capital intensive, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay, what does that mean? Then then we were thinking about, okay, well, what is the service model? Well, the service model is based on people. The people are the product. Okay. What does that mean? And then you start diving deeper into, or we were diving deeper into, okay, well, if it's people, then it's got to be about relationships. And then we started looking at, well, what are the service companies doing wrong? Well, then you start looking at, well, sure, there is this kind of thread out there around demand gen versus lead gen. Cool. It's even more dangerous for service companies. Because while some product companies can get away with more traditional lead gen tactics, and sometimes they actually work really well still to this day. Some people are going to hate me saying that, but with a service company where you're selling whatever, $500,000, $250,000 engagement over a year, whatever it is, you've traditionally built those through long-standing relationships and networking and reputation and whatever. And now you want to go and say, hey, download my ebook and buy my service. No, it just doesn't freaking work that way.
That's right.
It's literally impossible. So that led us to saying, okay, well, if it's about relationships, that's a mindset. What does that mean? And then from there, the big unlock was, well, if we look at most go-to-market models out there, they tend to ignore basic human psychology of how people build relationships. And that was the big unlock for us. Because once you have that, you're like, okay, well, now we have to, our messaging is all about that. Our service lines are all about that. Our everything evolves and is innovated around that core insight. And we went and talked to our customers. And while they didn't tell us that directly, the things we heard were, well, you really work to understand us as individuals. And this thing, like, okay, well, that's all relationship-based thinking.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
That confirms our assumption.
Yes. Yeah. And that's perfect, because that's exactly, relationships are not, I mean, if you're at all in a romantic relationship, you know that if all you talk about is yourself, you're not going to be in that relationship very long. So it's no different for our business relationships. If all you talk about is we're great at this and we do this and we're awesome at this, and you try and make that customer, that potential customer, that prospect fit you only, you're not going to get very far in that relationship. And I agree with you. If it's a high ticket, high touch relationship, man, you better adapt yourself or speak the language they speak in relation to their issues before you ever talk about the language of who you are and what you do, unless you're talking about how you align with that, and who you are is very aligned with that. So if you're going to serve tech companies, then you better talk about your tech background or your tech understanding or your tech love, or, whatever. There was a company I was helping, and it basically, our main premise is we love creators. We love creators. We are creators. We support creators. We create. It's all about, so someone who's a creator is going to get that. And they're going to, oh, this is probably my home, right? Mm-hmm. So I agree 100%. So you took that innovation and you talked to your customers and you built relationships. So let's go to that demand gen idea and say, okay, lead gen versus demand gen. How did that innovation of service make you flip that to let's create demand for what we do? Just one insight. You don't have to give us your secrets of how you do your business, but one insight as to how someone can say, okay, instead of offering a free ebook and hoping someone downloads it, and I'm talking to CEOs for gravity's sake, no, CEO isn't going to download your ebook, right? How did you just flip that and go, okay, one insight into how we can shift it to demand generation?
So, and this gets back, I think I'd like to maybe take a step further back because there are some core concepts there that are important, which we
Awesome.
figured out through this process. One is like there's a big misconception of how people think about brand, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that says, well, the best brands are the ones that build relationships with their customers. Nope. Brands don't, like, people don't build direct relationships with brands, right? Even like if you think about consumer brands, which is where this thinking comes from, you're not buying Patagonia because you've built a relationship with Patagonia. No, you're buying Patagonia because you've built a relationship to the ideas that Patagonia stands for, their stance on, renewable and conservation, all that jazz. And you've built a relationship, even though it's not a personal one, to their founder.
Yes.
Likely, right?
Yes.
So the insight there is people build relationships to people, ideas, and groups. And through those vehicles, they build affinity to the brand.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that's a core piece. And then when you add that on top of, well, what does it mean to build a relationship? Well, there's a consistent process of, I got to get you excited. You're going to become skeptical at some point about something I'm telling you. If you can't figure all that out in your head, you're going to question it to somebody, right? And you can do this model with a personal relationship, or romantic relationship, whatever. Then if that all gets figured out, you become convinced, and then you become committed externally, and that keeps going and going and going. So what we needed to think about is, well, step one is, well, how do we get somebody excited about our different? And our different, which became later called relationship-led growth, the go-to-market model that we built, is we have to let people experience it for themselves. So we created a live event. We run it every 2 weeks, and we invite people, we talk about it, we share the insights from there. Sometimes we talk to people live, all that kind of stuff. So again, it's living the framework that we built. Because not only then does that invite people in, it allows us to then go out and say, hey, we do this ourselves.
Exactly.
We
eat our
built
own
our
dog
business
food.
in the way that we're telling you to build your business.
Yeah. We eat our own dog food.
Yep.
That's it.
I
Wow.
prefer we drink our own champagne, but yeah, teach their own.
Yep. However we want to look at it. I love that. Yeah. I'll say, I drink my own Kahlua. Thank you very much. So that's brilliant. I love that analogy. And then taking that scenario. So you do a live event, you invite people to it, you get people excited, you probably handle their skepticism at some point. So do you do that in your live event and also on your page? Is that like an FAQ thing, or, how do you do
It's a
that?
combination. So yes, there's an FAQ, which needs to be updated as of right now, but it's there. Sometimes we get comments, and every once in a while they are skeptical. Usually what ends up happening is, at this point, at least by the time people come to the event, they already sort of bought into the overarching concept already through things we've shared. But yes, we do that there. Sometimes it's a follow-up or outreach or whatever.
Yeah, I love it too. When you talk about a framework, you've developed this framework of how you operate, how you build relationships at scale, and how you help other companies do that as a service. And when you explain that let's go back to our first conversation when you started talking about getting someone on a call and talking about being better, faster, cheaper, whatever. Do you have to explain that framework when you get someone on a call, or by the time they get on the call, are they already there? In other words, give me the juxtaposition from before, when you weren't different, and now when you are different, how those conversations go.
So it depends. It depends on how they're coming in and how I'm starting the conversation. What happens, honestly, a lot of the conversations I have right now are somebody I connect to for a completely unrelated reason. They've probably seen my content. So in the backs of their minds, they're already sort of thinking this way. And then they go, what do you do? Tell me a little bit more about Proofpoint. And I go, well, we help companies build relationships at scale. yada, yada. They go, oh, well, what does that mean? Like, glad you asked. But right. And what I do actually is I tell them a story about their business because I've heard the same story a million times over because I'm talking to the same people. And it literally is the same story a million times over. And they just go, oh, wow. Can I take a screenshot of that? Because, there's a couple of slides I'll share. Right. And at that point, there is no comparison happening anymore because they can't compare us to anybody else because as far as I know, we're the only ones with the relationship-led growth framework that completely illuminates the story and the pain points that they have inevitably.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.